we will listen from industry leaders, and we have a diverse panel, and I'm actually privileged to moderate this panel of distinguished leaders. And we have, I'm expecting views from right from the policy, industry leader, academia. Okay, so let us begin this session with asking one fundamental question, and then we will have individual opinions from the panelists. Okay, so a quick question to all of you. In last 5 years, which leadership skill in supply chain, according to you, has become obsolete? So I'll start with Dr. Dua.
I would think that somebody who thought that he's a master of supply chains, logistics, etc., would find his expertise somewhat less relevant than before. Things have undergone such drastic changes for which I think most managers, supply chain managers, as well as the people who they were working for or work for, were not prepared. The geopolitical changes led by a rule of lack of law, not rule of law, has upset everything which existed around the corner.
Thank you. Dr. Vandana, quick comment from your side.
Yes, thank you. Am I audible? Right at the back, the energy is there? Yes, yes. So I would like to go with the opposite, to tell you, I won't talk about obsolete. I will say one who can take risks, can adapt. So today's buzzword is about adaptability. It's about who is taking the risks, who is having the courage in uncertain times, in risky times. I think we are seeing geopolitical tensions now, I think for God knows how many years we are living through those times. So somebody who can thrive, take those decisions, take those chances, and be adaptive to change, which has become a constant, is the one who can sort of lead the way, show the way, and go the way. That's what I would say.
Great, thank you so much. Professor Devjit.
Thank you, Dr. Rajeev. In fact, I will follow Vandana's steps. In fact, I would ask all of you to close your eyes and think, those who are coming from supply chains, when is the last time did you think about going to the office and changing the way the supply chains work? And the answer would be that when there was a disruption in your supply chain, when some of the customer complaints came, when there was a fire in the supply chain, that was the time you thought about changing something. So what is going obsolete and what is really becoming more important is that how can we move away from reactive to more proactive decision making? That is what will lead the future. I don't think we can wait for the next big disruption. And what is becoming more and more important now is all about data. How can you use data and how can you integrate the data across different parts of the supply chain and take a proactive decision making before even the fire is struck? That is what I would say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Radha Mohan.
Yeah. What has become, the question is very specific. What has become obsolete in last 5 years, right? And I'm expanding it not only for supply chain leaders, but for all the leaders. One thing which comes to my mind that which has become obsolete is that leaders have answers to all your problems, right? Now, leaders, rather than giving solutions, are expected to ask right questions. And ask right questions and get the answers and use the collective intelligence of the organization to come to the solution. So I personally feel that question is that now leaders are more required to ask the right question rather than giving the solution. And that skill of having solution for everything is obsolete or becoming obsolete. Thank you.
Okay.
The downside of, answering last is that you are exhausted of all the options. But I would say that I agree with most of the things which panelists have already said. But particularly, I think my thoughts resonate with Dr. Dua, that, I think functional expertise, and for supply chain leader, having the functional expertise has become completely obsolete. And in my mind, supply chain leader is, Tim Cook is the classic example. Apple, till very recent past, was one of the most valued company in the world. The valuation was probably equivalent to the combined GDP of many, many countries. And the CEO of the company was a supply chain professional, right? So I think supply chain professionals having only supply chain expertise is something which is obsolete. The need of the hour, and for the future, I think what will be important is supply chain professionals will be the ones who will be driving the organizations, enabling the business. I think that is going to be the future, and having siloed view of the function is something which is obsolete now.
Yes, I totally agree. I mean, if you asked me, based on my experience from that recruitment panel, we totally got convinced that yes, functional expertise is something which is taking a back seat. I was invited as a subject matter expert in that panel, and I was just keeping quiet because I was not required to ask any questions. Okay, that's just a joke, but yeah, it proves the point. Because the mic, I mean, I will ask you this question. Global supply chains are, again, domestic supply chain versus global supply chain. I understand the strategy should be very different, managing global supply chain. Recently, United Nations declared the next decade, 2026 to 2035, the next decade, as a decade of sustainable transport, right? Now, sustainability is something which is, again, in logistics or in supply chain, people say it is mostly pushed to us from the West or from Europe or from global clients. Okay, you agree with that?
I don't agree with that at all. I think supply chain or any business leader should look at sustainability as a given. Very simple example I would like to use. Sun sends the amount of energy which sun is sending in 2 minutes is the amount of energy which mankind is using in the full year. Okay? So that's the amount of free energy which is available to you. It is only a matter of how you are able to tap it and when you will be able to economically tap it. So I think as supply chain or a business leader, my thought is we should definitely try to adopt and support all these sustainability initiatives, because if we do not do it, then scale will not be there, and hence we will not be able to economically tap it in future. So my thought is that we must every day make an attempt to start using them so that the scale is achieved, so that we are able to eventually tap it almost at a free of cost.
Okay, so if I could understand, so sustainability is not.
It's just an example of energy. I am saying in
So
all
it's-
aspects.
Yeah. So it is not necessarily a cost center. You are saying that because people are finding this as a source of competitive advantage or a profit making, therefore it is inherently coming into the supply
Absolutely,
chain.
absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I will move to Dr. Radha Mohan. There is always a tension that because we are talking about managing uncertainties in supply chain, and we say that we have to make our supply chain resilient so that we can handle these disturbances. And then, of course, earlier we used to have focus on efficient supply chain. Okay, so then there is a tension that resilience as well as efficiency, how to balance that tension. Okay. Now, given your vast experience in managing supply chain, can you share some instances or best practices where you feel you observe that the leaders were able to manage this tension?
I think professor is ensuring that we get tough questions, right? It is getting tougher and tougher. So, thank you very much for asking this question. I would like to say that efficiency and resilience, right? And in the sense, if we say that they are competing with each other, that will be my first disagreement, right? The portraying both of them that they are competing with each other, is a very oversimplification, I will say. Now, talking a bit technical, is efficiency talks about removing waste, anything which is waste. And resilience talks about absorbing shocks, bouncing back, right? So now what I'll say, they can go hand in hand together as well. And some of the example, because he asked that if we could give some examples. Now, let's take example of COVID. The organizations which were working on the lean inventory, and that was the pride of the organization, suddenly became the fragile supply chain. Suddenly, all of a sudden, the people, those who were appreciating, suddenly are now castigating the lean inventory, right? However, in all this chaos, there were organizations who had managed inventory very well, and it is not keeping high inventory, guys. Don't mistake me. It is like finding your decoupling points and strategizing and putting the inventory only there. It does not mean you are keeping a high inventory. Now that is the trade-off, that is the balancing it out, to answer your question directly. That yes, I do have the inventory and might be little higher as well, but you also need to do the cost-benefit analysis that little inventory increase, carrying cost, has given you multiple increase in the service. And also you have maintained the customer trust in those difficult times. So what I'm talking about is that the efficiency and resilience, they can go hand in hand. Yes, there might be some trade-off, but that is in larger interest of the business. And I gave you one example. Thank you.
I would just add to what Mr. Radha has just said. I think efficiency is a word the word itself has got a very narrow meaning, because ultimately you have to look at the cost, and there is a cost of not only servicing, but there is a cost of non-service, there is a cost of lost sale. I think if you add all that also, as he's suggesting, then you will be able to arrive, what is the cost and how efficient you are.
Thank you so much for adding this point. Professor Devjit, you want to add to this discussion?
Yeah, I think actually I wanted to, you just saw me, I think you got it right. It is very interesting read, and not sure you all have read it. It was very popular during the pandemic time because that was a disruption we were seeing in large scale. There was a very interesting study by a faculty from MIT, you would know probably David Shimchi-Levy, and he brought out a very interesting metric. It was the metric called TTR, which is time to recover versus time to survive. And that is a very fascinating metric, because the TTR told you if there is disruption, how many days or how many months will it take to come back, bounce back, which is what you're talking about, right? But if you think that if you're taking 5 days to bounce back, then the next metric that comes back is called TTS. How much inventory are you keeping to survive? Now, if your TTR is very, very high than your TTS, there is a problem. And that's when I think you should all think about how do you give the risk measure to each of the nodes of your supply chain. So what he proposed was a very interesting metric, which is called the performance impact, which is precisely based on, and he showed in the paper that one of the commodity player, which was the cheapest cost, who would never ever bother about that particular supplier, was actually the most risky supplier. So you have to understand, we always take, for example, when we do our cost analysis, when you look at the risk, we take as which supplier are we having the top spend. In fact, the top spend supplier may not be the risky one. The least spend supplier may be the most risky one. So in fact, you have to do a balanced judgment between who is the top spend versus who is the most risky, and accordingly you have to keep just sufficient inventory to match the TTR. I think that's what I would add to this story.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'll get back to you again, but I want to hear from Dr. Vandana. And let me give you the context here. When we talk about supply chain leadership, one of the emerging theme is how good you are in managing your ecosystem. So supply chain is mostly becoming like an strategic ecosystem. You represent an industry that involves ecosystem thinking. Okay, I'm reading it in this manner. Your industry, the industry that you are currently representing, is inherently multimodal. Okay, so those kind of challenges dealing with different stakeholders inherently comes into picture. So can you share with us how leaders in your industry manage stakeholders, when it could be examples from your industry or in general?
Thank you. I think that's a very interesting question that you've asked. Firstly, you can again relate back to the pandemic. And there I'll first go back to resiliency and efficiency, and you could see that when, like you said, like when you have to survive, then you fight back and you find ways and means to really fight back and come out and recover strong. And this is what happened during the pandemic. Now, if you look at the industry that I represent, which is mainly aviation, this is my background, then you see how the landscape is now changing. We can no longer talk about just the first mile or the last mile. We have to talk, and we cannot no longer talk about mode to mode. It has to be integrated logistics. It has to be, like I mentioned, one nation, one transit. It cannot be rail to road, air to road, air to railways. It has to be a combined effect, and this is where our country is now heading to. This is where our industry is now heading to. Recent example, as I've been saying, is the Jewar airport that's opened and the Navi Mumbai airport that's opened. Our aim is to become integrated aviation cargo hubs also over there. So this is essentially, I'm now moving away from the passenger side and just focusing on the supply chain solutions, the warehousing, the MRO, all of that. So with these two airports coming in, you are going to see more hub and spoke. You're going to see a lot of multimodal operations happening. And this is where our industry, our country is heading to. In all ways, as I mentioned in the beginning, to be Atmanirbhar. And to be able to do this, we have to maintain the supply chain, the demand-supply equation very well. And this we are doing with opening of so many airports. Guwahati in January became an international airport. We have flights going to Hanoi as we speak from Guwahati and other places Southeast Asia. Also, do not forget that there is a road which is 1500 kilometers long, which is now connecting Thailand to Nagaland. There is just that 50-kilometer stretch of Myanmar, which is disputed. But if that happens, can you imagine those Mercedes-Benz, which take 5 years to come to our country from Thailand, just moving by road to us in 39 hours? So that is the way the landscape is changing right now. And I hope I answered your question, because I can go on and on. Thank you.
Great. We can take Dr. Dua's views also on this, but I will make the question a little generic. How do you think these supply chain providers in the country or logistic companies in the country are, when you compare us with similar companies outside India, how are they performing One option is strategically, are they working with the government and pushing the policy formation, or they are just following the regulation, whatever is coming from the government? That is one. Second thing is, if you can contextualize it in the the context is multimodal logistics or sustainability. Is it coming from the government side, or companies are also aggressively pursuing these ideas?
Let me venture by pointing out that it's easier said than done, saying that earlier we were concerned about efficiencies, now we are concerned more about assured supplies, fewer disruptions, and those kind of things, so that the supply chain become sustainable. But what are these dependent upon? One, it's if you are going to be keeping huge inventories, certain countries like Japan should be out of business totally, because for them from day one it was zero inventory on, as they said, online, that nobody could come and deliver a day before then he was expected to, and if he delayed, he was blacklisted. So that was the origin of lean manufacturing. And then it got expanded to say, why even manufacture? Let's get the goods manufactured from somewhere else, because that might be cheaper, that person might be a specialist, the contract manufacturing, etc. It started. So we are not looking at some of these options when we talk about inventory building. Very good to have, today we have, what's it, some 21 days of strategic reserves of oil. Somebody said 34, but I don't believe that. They took in the context of construction, which is still going on, the public sector control, so the figures are also public sector driven. But it was about 3 weeks or so. The cost of holding the oil, it's not insignificant. You talk of 5 million tons, 6 million tons strategic reserves. What's the cost of money in your country? A country which has got 2% rate of borrowing or credit interest is at a different situation than if your rate of interest of borrowing is 12. I'm saying at what ultimately the businessman gets. It's a different matter if you have lots of land, but a country which is small, land is a constraint. How much of reserves can you hold? Because the land also has alternate usages and opportunity cost. So I am saying it's not an easy question to talk about, that we should be more resilient. The efficiency as a definition, as Mr. Sehgal mentioned, obviously the definition has to change to not just least cost, but also minimizing the risks, minimizing the uncertainty in supplies. But now, if the moment you do some of the things which we are talking about, more strategic reserves, etc., there are greater risks of even to the land, percolation, leakages, and fire hazards. The saying that underground fire doesn't reach, let's not be under that impression. Most fires in the world are underground, and you get to know years later that the earth under you has been smoldering, and that is where the geological changes take place. So I'm just trying to encapsulate that easier said than done, and whether it's a government's role or a private sector, I think it is almost everybody's or it's nobody's. So I would rather be saying let it be everybody's charge, rather than saying that we will not promote efficiency in various contexts, not merely costs.
I think in many ways it is very contextual, as Dr. Dua has already suggested. So, for example, the efficiency which a Japanese supply chain third-party logistics provider would require, or a company there would require, would be different than the requirement of an Indian company, right? So, for example, for me, my customers are not only in the cities, but they are in rural areas. They are into the heart of the cities also, right? So there could be a customer for me who could be actually there in Old Delhi, in Khari Bauli, right? So my logistics provider doesn't need to be that much efficient as a supply chain logistics provider in Japan needs to be, but he needs to be very flexible. He should be able to pick up my goods from my warehouse, take it in a truck, and then there could be multiple modes of transportation thereafter also, right? There could be the last mile, which would be a Hath Gadi there. So, for my logistics provider needs to be that much flexible. So very contextual. And, in India, the requirement is probably totally different, and our logistics providers are kind of doing the job they are supposed to do. And there are certain things which the government will have to push. And once the push, for example, you can say leading the life as a law-abiding citizen, whether citizens do it themselves or, law is being enforced by the government. It is good for the citizens. Everyone should understand that, but I think enforcement sometimes is required from the government side. So that's the way I would look at it. Some of the things government would initially have to enforce. Later on, as the society progresses, they will understand and they will probably accept it more and have that as a lifestyle for themselves.
So, we were discussing inventory as a lever to handle resilience. This logistics lead time, I mean, it's good that you added this point that if you have multiple modes possible, then you can handle that lead time fluctuation also. I'll pick a point from your discussion, that something has to come from government side or the policy side, and then companies will pick up. I think sustainability is again one such. Initially, it was mostly about compliance. For example, if I teach this topic in my class, I ask the students, do you wear a seat belt? Some students say yes. No, or I ask like, why do you wear a seat belt? Then they say, some students say that, okay, I wear a seat belt, otherwise traffic police will catch me. Some students say, no, it is for my safety. It is required for my safety. Now you see the actions are same, but the intentions are different, right? Sustainability, more or less, I mean, there is general understanding that it's driven by compliance. There's nothing wrong in that. Okay, so sometime hand holding or sometimes some policy push is required to make certain changes on the ground. So I totally agree with you on that point. I will ask one question, and this is related to technology. I'll ask this question to Professor Devjit. We talk about technological transformation in supply chain, and I'm asking you this question, and particularly in the context of AI, we keep hearing that, okay, AI is transforming the supply chain, but when I talk to companies, I get a feeling of FOMO. There is only lot of talks, but nothing, or maybe I'm interacting with only those kind of companies who are only talking. Okay, I have no clue what is happening in that domain. So there is a general understanding that maybe technology has advanced, but leaders have not been able to catch up. Okay, is it true? What is your view on that?
I think the industry has been, I see two kind of industries now, right? One kind of industry who is still not able to believe that AI can really rule us, going the traditional way, and they think that is what the business it is. And the other companies who are trying to make the supply chain much more autonomous. I'll give examples of both of it. For example, if you think about, I'm sure all the supply chain experts, you all will know what is called the traditional bullwhip effect. How many of you heard about the bullwhip effect? Right? Most of you have heard about it. If not, what it tells is that a small kind of variation downstream in demand can cause huge amplifications of demand upstream. And that is we see usually. For example, think about there is a sale and it is one-time sale and retailer says, oh, it is a sale, so retailer orders the distributor 20% more. And distributor thinks, oh wow, it is a 20% more demand, looks like it is popular. And distributor asks the manufacturer 40% more. And manufacturer says, okay, then maybe tomorrow it will be 80% more. Manufacturer places the order to supplier even 80% more. So this is the traditional supply chain, how it has been going. If we talk about the whole last 1 minute, you would have seen that the supply chain that I have described is what is called the serial supply chain, where nobody talks to each other. And that's how the traditional supply chains are. But what AI is fundamentally changing is that today, if you think, you know what, I can put agents in for a manufacturing agent, I can bring a distributor agent, I can bring a supplier agent, I can make a retailer agent, let them take independent decisions. Do you think this version of AI will really solve the supply chain problem? If I introduce agents for individual all of the aspects, what do you think? How many things will solve the problem? You have the same supply chain, but now there are agents who are controlling their own operations instead of a human. How many beliefs it will solve? Not many? I can see one hand, there is some partially. Okay, one hand will solve. In fact, if you have the same supply chain where AI controls individual ones, the problem will amplify even faster. Which means AI will not solve the problem. What you need here is more of a collaborative agents. So what we see today, most of the companies think, you know what, because AI is going on, everybody's talking about AI, let's implement AI. And they implement AI still in silos, and what they say is a disaster, which doesn't happen slower, but even faster. So rather, what industries should go about is more about collaborative forecasting, collaborative replenishment. I like in general AI because it takes away the biases the individuals have. If you think the same discussion what we're having last 5-10 minutes, how do you manage disruptions using individually, we have our own biases. We have a recency bias, we know the last pandemic, and we take action based on that. We have a selection bias, we have a loss aversion biases. Our mind has so much biases. So if you think about taking those biases and taking decisions, of course our decision is not good. So now the AI agent that can look at the whole supply chain and can look into the future, look into the past, will take much more nuanced decision, which is much stronger. So in fact, AI is good. AI is good if it can leverage the unstructured data, structured data, and do a well reasoning across the whole horizon. If it is still working in silos, AI is not good. So AI also has to collaborate across the supply chain and take a much more nuanced decision. Just to close it up, I'm sure you have heard about this company called, for example, Blue Yonder. Have you heard of Blue Yonder? No? Blue Yonder is a company who's trying to do the very same thing. What they're trying to do is taking data from multiple sources, integrate them, and push it back to the management. And now the decision the management takes is much more data-driven. Since it's a context of our leadership skills, I think this is one thing which I would like to push to all supply chain leaders. And again, the same thought, right? Use AI to take much more proactive decisions. And you have to show that decision doesn't come from silos. It comes from integration of data from different sources, from the retailer, from the wholesaler, from the supplier, from the manufacturer. If you get all the data together and then the AI kind of looks into the reasoning models, it'll give you much more nuanced decision. So to sum it up, indeed, some industries are still using AI in silos. They are going to fail. Some industries have realized that we have to look at across the supply chain and leverage that. They are going to prosper.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Just to add a point here that AI or no AI, I think it is matter of the collaborative effort in supply chain. And it is not also only within supply chain as well. If you see the decision being taken in supply chain, they impact marketing, they impact finance, they impact manufacturing, right? If you take the inventories, the marketing would like to always improve the availability, whatever at good level it is, they would like to further improve it. Finance manages net working capital, and that will be a target for them to keep it lean. Manufacturing would like a stable plants running across kind of thing. So AI or no AI, I think that collaboration continues or should remain to make the right decisions and to make the organization work efficiently. Just a point.
I'd like to add something,
Please.
if I may,
Please.
time permitting. I'd like to quote the officials who were here from the Indian Army, if they are still there. They spoke about boots on the ground. What does that tell us? It has to be a collaboration, as all of us are talking about. It is like a partnership. You cannot depend completely on AI. AI is coming from where? AI is coming, who's the source? You tell me, who's the source? The source is us. The source is us human beings themselves. So if the source is us, then it has to be a very, very fine balance. And when it comes to fine balance, you can't leave everything to AI. It has to be a good partnership, otherwise it will not work. And if you work in silos, it will never work. It has to be collaborative, it has to be a partnership based, and it has to be a very balanced approach. We have to use where we think is appropriate, and we have to come forward where we have to come forward. If I leave the 787, now I'm not talking about Air India over here, but if I leave the machine totally as a machine, then you know what the machine did. Yeah, so we won't go into that dialogue, but it has to be a very, very fine balance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to change the lever now, and I'm going to be very specific here, because in the audience also I'm guessing there'll be someone who is interested in, are you interested in becoming the Chief Sustainability Officer? Okay, at least one person is there. Okay, so initially, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pose this question, that if you were to appoint a Chief Sustainability Officer, tell me which one skill you will definitely look for, and this could be quick, one-liner from all of you. We'll start from Dr. Ajay.
A guy who doesn't think that he's going to be sustainable forever. That unless he delivers his job, no. All that I'm saying is, Chief Sustainable Officers,
Chief Supply Chain Officer, sorry.
Supply Chain Sustainable Officer should not be thinking about his own sustainability, saying whether he can hang on to the job. The question is he or she going to be able to lengthen this durability of a product, durability of a division, durability of the company which he works for. And that is not dependent upon mere supply chain efficiency. It is dependent upon a world of external factors and others. So does he appreciate that? If he appreciates, how does he convert his appreciation into action on the ground? Not everything by himself, but he has to motivate the rest of the people and make sure that they, as a group, as a team, they become more sustainable in output than they were.
Okay, great points.
So
Ma'am?
I'll give you very quick, short answers. One, who listens. First and most important is one who listens. That is most important. And second, one is adaptability. Adaptability to uncertainty, to the volatile environment, or rather shall I say volatile is the new normal that we live in. So somebody who is able to take quick decisions, take the risks, use predictive analytics, and come up with decisions is one who will lead the way. This is what I'm looking at.
Okay, great.
So just a quick answer. I would look for someone who is not self-oriented and has a shared understanding of all the interest of the supply chain partners.
Okay, that's precisely stakeholder thinking or ecosystem thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the way we are going, that what all the CACOs should have, I can see the worried faces here. Across. The kind of expectations from CSCOs are there. So one of the things which I personally feel the Chief Supply Chain Officer skill should be, that he should be able to make complete decisions in incompleteness. Nothing is available nowadays, even the data is not fully available. The data is not available, the information is not available, nothing is certain. Now in this uncertainty, if he can take the best calls, is the Chief Supply Chain Officer's skills I would like to expect.
Thank you.
I think short thought in my mind is that for me, the good chief supply chain officer will be someone who doesn't look at only supply chain, but his focus should be customer. Someone who has the ability to always focus whatever is the issue which comes to him. He should be able to actually focus on the customer and the customer need, and then try to solve the problem. That is the kind of person who can always be a good chief supply chain officer, as per me.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm sure our audience may have some idea that what the industry leaders are looking for in the future supply chain leaders. We have just 1 minute and we can take audience questions if we have.
Yeah, it was a very nice discussion for the supply chain and for the future generation. It was a very good advice. Number one, my question is especially to Dr. Vandana Singh on the aviation cargo. I was dealing with the aviation cargo when 25 years back, where it was in infancy. But today, the world is becoming one village. So I would like to ask Vandana that cargo aeroplanes are owned by 3-4 companies, but cargo shipment is tremendous amount of potential in the cargo internationally. So in another 10 years, what will be the line of action so that we are having more planes dedicated to the cargo shipment to various countries? Thank you.
That's a very nice question, sir. Thank you for asking that question. First of all, with the increasing airports now in India, like I spoke about Jewar and I spoke about Navi Mumbai and other airports that are coming up internationally, such as Guwahati and all, with the increasing number, we are going to see a lot of integrators coming in. India turning into aviation, cargo aviation hub, if I can say that. Proper hub and spoke model. I mean, if Korea can do it, if Hong Kong can do it, if Singapore can do it, why can't we do it? So the main thing is that we are there. Currently output at 3.6 million tons, predicted to grow by 2030 to 10.8 million tons, and I think we will achieve that by 2032. So even if the Atmanirbhar, is our vision is 2047, but I believe that we are going to achieve all of this very rapidly in India. Just take one example of Jewar, Noida International Airport. And if you take example of that, then you will see already with the kind of policies that the government has implemented, hub and spoke is already a reality. Be it Varanasi, be it Lucknow, be it Jewar, be it Kushinagar, be all the places in UP are already becoming hub and spoke. And with that, we are increasing the aviation cargo output and input. Therefore, we will see the fleet of FedEx, we will see the fleet of DHL Aviation, we will see the fleet of big integrators coming into our country, because I think geographically we are the best located, much better than Hong Kong or a Singapore. I think we are very well located. It's just that we have to up our game. That's where I'm coming from. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so our time is up and I don't want to lose my marks as a moderator because marks do matter for us in academia. So the emerging theme here is supply chain is not only about technology or infrastructure, it is also about better leadership. And what is better leadership that we have learned here? A leader who is able to manage resilience with efficiency, AI with human collaboration, ability to work across boundaries, across stakeholders, and so on. It was a privilege to hear the distinguished panelists and their insights.
So let us thank on behalf of all of us. I would thank all the panelists for sharing your insights with us, and thanks to the audience for being an excellent audience. Thank you so much.